Dwight would never enter psychotherapy, not in a million years. He wouldn't trust a shrink, a psychologist, a psychotherapist, definitely not a psychotherapist in training like me. But today, we'll pretend he does. At the end of this video, you will have gained totally useless, but hopefully still fascinating insights into the psychology of Dwight Schrute. We will answer questions such as, what is Dwight's personality style? Or if he had personality disorder, which one would it be? What is his core issue that explains why he is so obsessed with power? And why does he look so ridiculous trying to gain it? Hi, if we haven't met yet, my name is Alina. I'm a German psychologist and psychodynamic psychotherapist in training. If we were to ask Dwight about, his childhood, memories that stand out, basically everything that a psychodynamic psychotherapist would do, he would have a bunch of remarkable points to make. So let's set the stage with a quick summary of important aspects of his biography to get us all up to speed. Dwight was born as Dwight Kurt Schrute III into a family with a Mennonite or Amish background. Originally, he was a twin, and Dwight says that he absorbed his twin in his mother's womb. I actually looked that up. It's called vanishing twin syndrome, so apparently that's actually a thing. But it gets even more weird. He claims to remember his birth, in which his father delivered him, his mother bit the umbilical cord, and Dwight weighed 13 pounds and 5 ounces. For anyone else in the metric system like me, that is 6 kilos. Imagine a 6-kilo baby. Dwight says that he didn't actually see his father for the first 2 years of his life, and altogether, we don't really get to learn a lot about Dwight's family of origin. All we know is that his father cheated in games, that he was obese, and that some of his family members were actually linked to Nazi Germany. We're aware of only 2 siblings, one sister, Fanny, and one brother, Jab. As memorable childhood events, Dwight recalls performing his own circumcision, being shunned from the age of 4 to 6 for not saving the excess oil from a can of tuna. And Dwight explains shunning as being an Amish technique that is like slapping someone with silence. And third, he remembers losing a spelling bee at school due to misspelling the word failure. We meet and get to know Dwight in his current employment, which is at Dunder Mifflin Paper Company, where he works as assistant to the regional manager. He's a top salesman there, very successful, all while living on a 60-acre farm with his cousin Mose that they run together as a beetroot farm, bed and breakfast, sometimes event venue, with really like a bunch of other entrepreneurial projects. And lastly, if asked about his interests, Dwight would mention karate, survivalism, weapons, and the movie Battlestar. How can we interpret all of this? What can we get from this very short insight into his childhood? You see, even before birth, parents have all sorts of fantasies, hopes, fears about their child, even when the child is not even born yet. And they quickly project that onto them. So you can ask yourself, is the child wished for as the heir of the, proverbial throne from the family? Is it supposed to continue the family lineage? Is it wished for to be, always happy, the sunshine child? Is it wished for to provide for the parents later on, some sort of pension or retirement insurance? Is it wished for as a companion for the lonely mother or father? Is it wished for as a narcissistic extension to the mother or the father? Was the child wanted and planned? Or was it unplanned? And was that still a pleasant surprise? And of course, there are many different projections, ranging from more positive and healthy to less healthy. The thing I want to get at is that no child is kind of born, into a blank slate or into a blank canvas, if you will, because the parents always tell themselves, others, the child stories. And even if they don't overtly tell stories, there's still an atmosphere in the family that is loaded with expectations, hopes, fears, dreams that the child is born into. Now, culturally in the West, we went from parents, hoping their child would be healthy to parents hoping their child will be happy. But that is definitely not the case for Dwight. So we'll leave that for another time. Even if we only look at his name, by naming him Dwight Kurt Schrute III, his parents really placed him, firmly into this family lineage. I didn't find evidence that Dwight is the firstborn, but given his name, that would make sense. And so likely there are a lot of projections on him to carry, this proud, grand family lineage and the name forward. We don't really know whether this fantasy of, the grand family is something that has been handed to him from his family, or whether that is a fantasy that is his very own. But as a viewer, we quickly realize that his family is not that great. They're actually quite odd. And right there, you can already see one of Dwight's recurring patterns. He so much attempts to make the fantasy of, being superior real, that he involuntarily looks very foolish and gullible, which of course his colleagues Jim and Pam use for their pranks all the time. And we'll come to why Dwight needs to establish this superiority later, because that has actually a lot to do with his personality style, which I will argue is not narcissistic. So that might be interesting for you. We also know that Dwight comes from a Mennonite or Amish background. Those are usually more isolated communities. They keep to themselves. They place great emphasis on, autarky, independence. They generally have less contact with other realities, and therefore beliefs that are held in the family are much less likely to be tested against reality. That is not to say that those communities are bad. They have certainly figured out the loneliness epidemic way better than the rest of the West did. It's just that each way of life has a price. And the price that, tight-knit family structures pay is often that they sacrifice individuation and freedom. There's usually a lot more rigidity in the family system, which, is great for sustainability, reliability, and the ability to survive, which we can clearly see in Dwight, but just worse for flexibility and the expression of individual differences. And this really comes to full fruition when Dwight is appointed interim manager. If you want to take a look at this, it's season 7, episode 24. When Dwight enters the office, it almost looks like he's about to have an orgasm. He is obsessed with power, and Dwight really seems to rule with an iron fist. Everything is controlled, regulated, constricted, and the only individual thing left are the individual copier codes, which of course, have the purpose to track who prints what, when, and where. And now here's the interesting thing. Dwight's role only comes to an end when he fires a gun in the office, as he says, by accident. And this is precisely the core of his problem, the core of his personality style that costs him this beloved position of manager. His own aggression. You can see the holster, the gun, the piranha, the desk that he modeled after one of Saddam Hussein's sons. They all stand for Dwight's deeply troubled relation with his own aggression. And this leads us right into my personal hypothesis about Dwight's personality style. I think that with the birth of his sister or his brother, we don't know which one comes first, but I would guess his sister, Dwight was pushed off, the throne. The little bit of attention that the mother had left to give now went to his sister, or the second born sibling. We don't know how old Dwight was, but likely he was maybe 2 years old. And I could imagine that suddenly not getting the attention and the love, the little that the mother probably had to give, given what we know about Dwight's family, probably that led to a lot of aggression inside, poor 2-year-old Dwight. And yet he lives in a family system that's very, tight-knit. It's very much like us against the world. So there's no place for aggression within the family, towards a sibling or the mother. I mean, just, remember that Dwight was completely ignored from the ages 4 to 6. So the only way to handle his own aggression, given his temperament and the family system, would be to use the defense mechanism of projection and project his own aggression outward. And this is how his paranoid personality style was born. I believe that Dwight's personality style is a paranoid personality style. And the hallmark of a paranoid personality style is to project negative aspects of oneself onto others, where they can then be experienced as a threat and can be dealt with. Nancy McWilliams writes that paranoia intrinsically involves experiencing what is inside as if it were outside of the self. Dwight might say, it's not that I have a problem with aggression, it's that the world is dangerous. People are out there to get you, and you always have to be prepared. Because others are the threat, his way of life becomes justified. In his psychic reality, meaning his lived reality, prepping, being skilled in self-defense, owning weapons, focusing on autarky, rigidity, his love for justice, control and power. It all makes sense because it is in his pursuit of destroying the threat out there before it destroys himself. And there's actually an interesting book that goes beyond just, the individual with a paranoid personality style, but actually looks at paranoid family structures. It's a book by the German psychoanalyst Horst Eberhard Richter, and it's called The Family as Patient. I think it's from 1974, so quite a while ago. He writes that paranoia offers many families their last chance of solidarity, which ordinarily, because of the unusual pressure of unmastered aggression, could not be attained in any other way. You see, a paranoid family collectively doesn't just deny parts of reality, it also reinterprets it. It reinterprets it as to remove the contradictions, often, with a we'll show them, they will see attitude. Moving on to love and marriage. Experiencing loving feelings is particularly scary for people with paranoid tendencies because their early relationships were filled with humiliation, shame, guilt, fear of retribution, not being comforted. And that is probably why his, on-off, secret, not secret, relationship affair with Angela works out. Both of them are just equally weird and rigid, establishing their connection first off as a secret, then as an affair, later as a contract to get pregnant. When Dwight breaks the contract and Angela sues him for breaking the contract, Dwight agrees to 5 sessions of sex. It's weird, and I guess this is as romantic as it gets with 2 characters of that caliber. Surprisingly though, throughout the series, Dwight is pretty successful with the ladies, which no one seems to figure out given how low his social skills are. And I guess the only explanation that would work, given the cosmos of the series, I don't think, it would be the same outside of the series, but it's probably because Dwight presents himself as very masculine, very self-confident and brave, which might speak to some women. Freud actually had an interesting angle to add to, love and marriage with paranoia. And that is that Freud saw paranoia as a defense against homosexual feelings, or in general, a longing for being close to same-sex people, which might be interesting to consider in Dwight's case because of his absent father and his near worship of Michael Scott. But yeah, to be honest, I don't know enough about this. I don't know if I really buy this theory. So I can't really make a convincing case for that. We also need to look at what we would call differential diagnosis. Because you might say, well, Alina, couldn't Dwight also be narcissistic? He's so self-centered. Or couldn't he also be, obsessive? Like he's so obsessed with everything being rigid and controlled. Well, yeah, I mean, Dwight certainly also has both obsessive and narcissistic traits. But I would say that all his attempts to obtain control, power, really establishing himself and his family as superior, they are more in service of containing his fear of destruction and establishing self-sufficiency to respond to the threat of annihilation, rather than to bolster his self-esteem. Because if you remember, there was an episode where Dwight actually protects Jim from Pam's ex-fiancé Roy. I think that is season 3, episode 19. And if Dwight's narcissistic traits were greater than his paranoid ones, he would not have missed this chance to bolster his self-esteem. Never. A person with a more narcissistic streak would have never missed an opportunity to bathe in the glory of this brave deed. But what does Dwight do? Dwight really rejects any thanks, any gifts, any words of admiration. He simply says he did his duty. I love talking about Dwight because he's one of my favorite characters. He is so odd and yet so lovable. And I think that we can allow ourselves to identify with Dwight and to discover our own little paranoid traits inside of him. And if you're interested to learn more about psychodynamic psychology, how to understand someone like Dwight, whether that is yourself, others, or any other problem through the psychodynamic lens, you would probably love my newsletter. And you would also love a new secret project I'm working on that is not quite ready to announce yet, but if I'm ready to announce it, you will find a link in the description box, and if you join my email list, you will be the first one to be notified. So I hope to see you there, or maybe in the next video. Thank you so much for your attention. Bye bye.